Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. Skycommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by skycommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started. The world of drone operations has fundamentally moved beyond the simple visual line of sight, VLOS flight.
Oh, completely.
We're not talking about hobbyists anymore, or even simple commercial surveying within a little visual bubble. We are now firmly in the realm of highly scaled industrial fleets flying really complex infrastructure.
Pipelines, power lines.
Exactly. Rail inspections, emergency response, all happening miles and miles away. This is beyond visual line of sight, or BVLOS. And a listener sent us this incredible stack of material that details the specialized discipline you need to make BVLOS actually work.
And not just work, but work safely and predictably.
Right. We're looking at specific fleet failure scenarios, mandated logging practices, and the whole emerging structure of future FAA standards.
And the core mission here, it's a huge paradigm shift for operators. I mean, in BVLOS, you are intentionally removing the human eyeball.
The safety buffer.
The safety buffer, that crucial real-time control you have in VLS.
Yeah.
And you have to replace it with systems, with processes, and honestly, most importantly, with ironclad documentation.
So that's where we're diving into why reliability isn't just about efficiency or uptime. It's what the source material calls the required regulatory currency.
It is. It's the currency. Without that proof of safety and reliability, you just can't scale. It's that simple.
That phrase, regulatory currency, I love that. It suggests this documentation has a real, almost tradable value. Can you unpack what that means? What's the cost if you lose that currency?
The cost is operational stasis.
Yeah.
You're grounded. I mean, if your system shows unreliable performance like recurring lost link events or unmanaged software versions, the regulator has, zero confidence in giving you the waivers you need to fly.
So you can't fly over people. You can't fly beyond line of sight.
Exactly. Your reliability data is what you trade for permission. If your logs show chaos, your currency is, frankly, worthless.
Okay, that makes the stakes crystal clear. So today, we're going to use that lens to unpack 12 specific real-world fleet failures that show how tiny problems become huge systemic risks. Then we'll get into the 6 crucial logbooks that every serious BVLOS fleet needs to maintain that currency. And finally, we'll connect all of that to the future of regulation, especially the proposed Part 108.
And the challenge for these big professional fleets is turning these small, intermittent technical quirks, which, happen all the time when you're flying hundreds of hours a week, into managed, predictable risks.
Right, risks you can track and trend.
And resolve systemically. If you can't predict when a component will fail, you're just gambling. And BVLOS is an unforgiving environment. It really punishes assumptions. Let's unpack this idea of system stewardship.
So before we get into the gory details of what breaks, we really need to set the stage. We need to establish the non-negotiable legal floor set by the current regulations and really understand where the future rules are headed.
Yeah, that framework defines everything. It defines your operational risk, and therefore it defines your maintenance responsibilities. And what's fascinating is how the foundation of the current Part 107 rules already dictates the kind of disciplined aviation-grade maintenance you need for BVLOS.
So even before the new rules are official, you have to already be thinking this way.
You have to be. The legal baseline right now is this concept of condition for safe operation. Under Part 107, the Remote Piloting Command, the RPIC, has the ultimate veto power. They have to do a pre-flight inspection before each and every flight to determine that the drone is safe to fly.
And that's not just a quick look over, right? It's a legal determination.
It's a legal determination. And if you find an unresolved issue, a loose motor, a sensor that's acting up, a battery cell that's low, the aircraft is legally grounded. It cannot launch. It is the last line of defense.
The final safety gate.
Exactly. But what's crucial for BVLOS operators is how broadly the FAA defines maintenance. It's not just fixing broken parts. It's overhaul, repair, inspection, modification, replacement, and this is the big one-system software upgrades.
Okay, that's a huge commitment. The idea that software is maintenance, so updating firmware isn't just an IT task.
No, it's a formal safety maintenance action, and you have to treat it that way.
Why is that so critical?
Because a software change can subtly, or sometimes drastically, change critical safety behavior. It can change your fail-safe logic, how the return to home altitude is calculated, even how the aircraft handles a wind gust.
And if you don't document it as a formal maintenance action,
you introduce massive, invisible configuration drift into your fleet. And that drift is what kills predictability when you're trying to scale.
So how do you manage all that?
Well, you bring it into two types. First is scheduled, or preventive maintenance. The source material calls it the oil change logic for drones, which I think is perfect. It's work you do at planned intervals, flight hours, battery cycles, calendar days, based on manufacturer instructions. And if the manufacturer doesn't give you guidance, the professional operator has to establish their own reliable protocol.
So you're planning for the downtime instead of reacting to a catastrophic failure in the air.
Precisely. You shift from reactive chaos to scheduled, controlled downtime. The second type is, of course, unscheduled or corrective maintenance.
So fixing things when they break?
Exactly. Fix is triggered by defects you find in pre-flight or after a hard landing or from abnormal behavior you see in the flight logs. You ground it, you fix it, and it doesn't fly again until it's fixed.
Okay, so that's the current baseline with Part 107. Where is the FAA signaling that this is all headed for scaled BVLOS? That brings us to Part 108, right?
It does. The proposed Part 108 is all about normalizing BVLOS. Moving it from what has been permission by exception, getting these complex one-off waivers, to permission by system.
And what does that mean, permission by system?
It means operators have to formalize their evidence. They have to objectively prove safety and predictability at scale through documentation.
What are the big non-negotiable things Part 108 is emphasizing?
It's all about documentation and safety ecosystem controls. First, record keeping. The proposal explicitly requires detailed records for each aircraft, inspection status, every maintenance task, every alteration.
And the implication is, if it's not in the log.
It didn't happen. From a regulator's perspective, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. The log is your only proof of compliance. Second is airworthiness acceptance. The FAA wants a process using accepted industry consensus standards, like those from ASTM, to prove the UAS is built and maintained to a recognized standard.
So that's a huge step toward industrializing this. No more reinventing the wheel every time you want to prove your system is safe.
Exactly. And third is configuration control, or CM. This is probably the toughest one for big fleets. The proposal insists the aircraft has to conform to a single approved configuration.
This is that configuration drift problem again.
It's all about drift. After you swap parts or update software, your fleet must remain the same aircraft that was originally approved. And finally, there's continued operational safety, or COS. This is a big one. It's a proposed manufacturer obligation for ongoing oversight.
So the manufacturer has to keep tabs on things even after they sell the drone?
Yep. They'll have to do audits, investigations, issue safety bulletins based on data from the whole fleet. So if an operator in Texas finds a motor bearing fails at 300 hours, the manufacturer has to feed that learning back out to every other operator using that same motor.
So it scales the safety intelligence across the whole industry.
That's the idea. But it only works if operators are diligently logging that data and reporting it back. It all comes back to the logs.
The whole thing sounds like a shift away from just piloting and toward being a proactive, data-driven system steward. The common thread is verifiable, defensible proof. All right, so here's where we apply that framework to the real world. We're diving into the core of the source material now. And the biggest BVLOS failures, they're rarely just one thing going wrong.
No, they're almost always interaction effects. A nasty combination of wear and tear, the environment, some configuration drift.
Right. And we have 12 specific scenarios that show how these small problems become mission killers when you're miles away from the pilot.
And we have to look at these not as scary anomalies, but as the data points that a professional operator must be logging. These are the lessons that prove why preventive maintenance is so essential for catching these whispers before the scream.
I like that. Okay, let's start with the first category. The hidden killers in link, software, and power systems.
Right.
Let's start with the one that gives every remote pilot anxiety, a lost link. Scenario 1, the corridor that eats C2 links. An operator is flying a long pipeline patrol, same route every day, and they keep getting a lost link at the exact same 12-kilometer mark, which triggers a return to home.
And the first reaction is always to blame the cell provider, right? Or the drone's range.
Of course.
But the root cause here was more subtle. The logs showed two things happening. First, a new LTE tower handoff was introduced in that specific valley. At the same time, the ground antenna connection on the van had become slightly weakened.
So two small things.
Two small things that together pushed the command and control link margin right to the edge. The link was fine 95% of the time, but it was critically vulnerable right at that high-stress handoff moment.
How do you catch that before it aborts a mission? The pilot can't see the link margin dropping in real time.
You look at the C2Link event log. You have to capture GPS location, time, and the raw LTE metrics like RSRP, that's signal strength, and CNR, which is signal quality, the clarity.
So it's not just how loud the signal is, but how clear it is.
Exactly. And in this case, the strength was okay, but the clarity, the CNR, just tanked at that 12-kilometer mark. That pointed to the problem. And then the ground station maintenance log showed the coaxial cable had been flexed hundreds of times. It was degrading.
So it was a worn-out cable.
It was a worn-out cable. The fix was a scheduled inspection of the mounts and a strict cable replacement interval. Those cables are wear items.
So the currency moment is clear. A regulator asks how you manage lost link risk, and you show them the event heat map from your logs and the corrective action record for replacing the cable.
That's verifiable proof of mitigation.
Okay, on to the digital killer. Scenario 2, firmware Tuesday, weird Wednesday. A fleet gets a firmware update. Everything seems fine, but drone #11 starts getting compass errors and these little yaw oscillations. It just kind of shakes in the turns.
It's the configuration drift problem in real life.
But why just one drone if they all got the same update?
Because modern drones are these federated systems. The aircraft firmware updated, sure, but maybe the payload firmware for the fancy new camera didn't, or the tech missed a step.
So you get a conflict.
You get a timing or sensor conflict. The payload is sending data the flight controller isn't expecting, and it confuses the whole system. That shows up as navigation errors, like those oscillations.
And the log that catches this is the configuration log.
Has to be. And it can't just track the main firmware. It has to track everything: payload, controller, GPS module, all of it. The fix is a strict rule. No BVLOS until approving flight passes after any update. And you do a compliance check to confirm every version matches a known good standard before it ever takes off.
Okay, now power. Scenario 3. The battery that lies. An operator plans a 24-minute flight in cold weather, but at minute 14, the aircraft just initiates an unexpected return to home. Telemetry said 45% charge was left.
The battery meter was lying. It was lying because its math was based on a new battery. The root cause is increased internal resistance, or IR, which gets much worse in the cold.
So what does that do?
It causes voltage sag. The battery still has the energy, but when the motors pull a lot of current, that resistance turns power into heat instead of thrust. The voltage momentarily dips below the autopilot's critical minimum.
And boom, it triggers the failsafe.
It's instantaneous and it's dangerous. You prevent it by meticulously tracking the battery program log, not just cycle count, but you have to track the internal resistance trend over time.
And based on that trend,
you set clear retirement thresholds. If the IR increases by 30%, that battery is retired. Period. And you use cold weather derating rules. If it's below 5 degrees Celsius, you manually cut your planned mission time by 25%, no matter what the battery meter says, because your data tells you that's what's going to happen.
You move from guessing to predicting.
That's the whole game.
All right, let's move on to mechanical problems. These are the ones that are so tough because they're often invisible during a pre-flight. They're slow growing, or the most frustrating, intermittent.
Yeah, these can be really insidious. Let's take scenario 4. The prop crack you didn't see. Halfway through a mission, the pilot gets a vibration warning that just spikes, then a motor temperature warning and an emergency abort.
You'd think you hit a bird or something.
You might, but the root cause was a microscopic crack in a propeller, probably from a slightly hard landing a week ago. That crack grew silently with each flight until the prop became unbalanced.
And that imbalance causes vibration.
Causes massive vibration,
Yeah.
which makes the motor work overtime, draw more current, and overheat.
So what's the fix? You can't see a microcrack.
You implement a strict prop cycle limit and a mandatory magnified close inspection after any hard landing. And a lot of pro fleets use witness marks, like a little paint mark on the prop hubs. If those marks don't line up, You know instantly that something has shifted and you have a potential imbalance.
That's smart. Okay, next up is the classic time waster. Scenario 5, hard landing, soft decision. An aircraft has a hard landing, looks fine. The crew is under pressure, so they approve it for the next day. But then it starts showing intermittent GPS glitches and link jitter.
That soft decision is where the failure began. That hard landing almost certainly loosened an internal connector or shifted an antenna. It's intermittent because the fault only shows up under specific vibrations, so it's impossible to find on the ground.
And you can't fly BVLOS with an intermittent fault.
Never. The fix is an enforced event-triggered maintenance rule. Any trauma, a hard landing, a high G turn, requires a detailed, non-negotiable inspection checklist. And crucially, approving flight after the inspection before it goes back into BVLOS service. You have to verify the fix.
What about the ones that technicians see, but they just can't seem to fix for good? Scenario 6, the no-fault found trap.
No, this one is a fleet killer.
An aircraft keeps getting grounded for random payload dropouts. The tech swaps the cable, it works for a week, then it's back. The tech writes, no fault found, because it's working fine right now.
And that's the trap. The root cause is probably a vibration-driven disconnect from harness wear, because replacing the cable temporarily fixes the symptom, it gets labeled NFF, and the next technician wastes hours looking for a different cause.
So how does a fleet manager stop that cycle?
Systemically. You track all NFF occurrences as their own category in the defect log. If you see 2 NFFs for the same issue on the same drone in 1 month, you escalate it immediately to a design review of the harness or the cable routing. You stop chasing the symptom and you attack the pattern.
These next scenarios are interesting because the failure doesn't start with the aircraft itself. It starts in the charging station, the supply chain, or even just the weather.
Right. These are the non-flight systemic risks. Let's combine a couple here. Scenarios 7 and 10, all about procurement and charging. In one case, a fleet sees a spike in battery-related failures, but the cycle counts are low. The cause. One specific charger model is slightly out of calibration and is cooking the batteries.
It's degrading them without anyone realizing.
Exactly. And in the other case, the procurement team buys cheaper aftermarket props to save money, and suddenly vibration and temperature issues spike across the entire fleet.
So the failures are in the support system.
Precisely. For that charger, you need a charger maintenance log. You link battery performance drops back to specific charger IDs. The fix is rigorous QA, periodic calibration checks, and a strict rule. No new chargers without validation.
And for the counterfeit or aftermarket parts?
You need a strict approved parts list, or APL, and you use lot tracking. If a specific batch of props from one lot starts failing, you quarantine the whole batch. This proves to the regulator that your aircraft conforms exactly to the configuration they approved.
Now, what about the environment? Scenario 8, the corridor. That's fine until harvest season. An operator flying a rail line notices link quality tanks, but only during certain weeks along one 5-mile stretch. The hardware is all the same.
But the environment changed. The root cause is seasonal. It could be crops growing tall and blocking the signal, irrigation equipment running and creating interference, or even just cellular congestion from seasonal workers in the area.
So how do you manage that?
You correlate your C2 link event log with an environmental log. The fix is adding a corridor-specific seasonal risk playbook. During those winds, maybe you fly higher or you move the ground station. It shows the regulator you anticipate and manage external risks.
And the last one, maybe the most dangerous of all, Scenario 9, the technician who doesn't log. This tech is fast, experienced, but their undocumented minor tweaks create configuration drift and invisible maintenance debt.
This is the death knell for predictability. Imagine the tech recalibrates a magnetometer on one drone but doesn't log the new sensor offsets. 2 weeks later, a standard parameter fog gets pushed to the fleet.
And that one drone suddenly flies erratically because its custom undocumented settings just got wiped out.
Exactly. The fix has to be cultural. You enforce a strict no log, no flight rule, and you have to do random audits, reconciling the physical state of the aircraft against digital logs, because undocumented safety is, by definition, unprovable safety.
These 12 scenarios really paint a picture. BVLOS reliability is an active system that requires connecting all these different logs to spot the patterns before they become a disaster.
So if BVLOS reliability is your regulatory currency, then these 6 logs we're about to talk about are the receipts. They are the evidence that proves you're solvent.
I like that analogy. In VLOS, logs help you maintain the drone. In BVLOS, they're required to maintain the entire operation.
And your authorization to operate.
Right. And since these failures are rarely single cause, you need these overlapping sources of truth. Let's break down the essential logbooks.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the most fundamental one, the physical record. Number 1, the aircraft maintenance and inspection log, the hardware logbook.
This tracks the physical state and component life, just like in manned aviation. You need flight hours, cycles, records of parts installed or removed, with serial numbers for traceability, and evidence that you're complying with scheduled maintenance.
And crucially, the return to service sign-off.
The formal sign-off from a qualified tech. The regulatory tie here is direct. Part 108 will require records of inspection status and maintenance. If an auditor asks for the history of motor #3 on aircraft 42, you have to be able to produce that log entry instantly.
Okay, next, the one that prevents that silent killer of fleet consistency. Number 2, the configuration and software changelog, digital airworthiness.
This is probably the most critical log for preventing configuration drift. It has to track the specific firmware version for every major component: autopilot, controller, payload, ground station software, everything.
And not just the firmware, but the parameter baselines too, right?
Absolutely critical. You have to document settings like max bank angle, fail-safe trigger voltages, RTH altitude, geofences, and you need to log evidence that you tested that new configuration, and ideally have a rollback plan if it proves unstable.
So in an investigation, this log answers the question, was this aircraft on the same tested baseline as all the others?
Instantly. And if the answer is no, your credibility just collapses.
All right, number 3 addresses the biggest source of unpredictable failures, the battery program log, the power reliability ledger.
This is a meticulous monitor of the battery's entire life cycle. You need the unique ID, cycle count, but most importantly, its internal resistance trend. That's the metric that predicts aging.
And we saw why that matters in the case files. It lets you predict failure.
It lets you set data-driven retirement criteria. For example, if the IR increases by 30% from its baseline, that battery is retired. The log provides the hard data to make those calls, which saves you from those nasty voltage sag issues mid-mission.
Okay, so those are the 3 core logs. But BVLOS demands more specialized logging, right? To address the unique risks flying so far away.
It does. And first up is the lifeline record. Number 4, the C2 Link Health and Comms event log. This is pure regulatory currency. It proves your command and control reliability.
So what data goes in there?
You need to capture dropouts, latency spikes, and the raw link margin indicators like RSSI and DZNR. And you have to tag the precise GPS location and altitude of the event. And this is key. The autonomy behavior that was triggered. Did it hold? Did it return to home? Did it land?
And that log feeds directly back into Part 108's reporting requirements.
Directly. It allows you to build a heat map of your corridor's reliability and show a regulator how you're managing that risk.
The next log seems to be all about learning. Number 5, the safety occurrence and corrective action log. The learning loop.
This log is what converts individual incidents, or even near misses, into systemic fleet-level improvements. It has to contain the incident report, a rigorous root cause analysis, and the corrective and preventive actions you took.
And you have to prove the fix actually worked.
You have to include verification that the fix was implemented fleet-wide and that it demonstrably reduced the chance of it happening again. Reliability isn't just fixing a part, it's fixing the system that allowed the part to break.
Okay, and finally, integrating all of this into the daily workflow. Number 6, the mission operations log.
This one tracks the context of the flight. It's crucial for any kind of incident reconstruction. It tracks your pre-flight checklist completion, your airspace authorization codes, the weather, and any abnormal decisions made during the mission. It links the flight's operational plan back to the aircraft's physical condition record.
All this data is great, but it's useless without discipline.
Useless. You have to use IDs for everything so it's all traceable, and you have to create trigger rules that force action. For example, if a drone has 2 link drops in 10 flights, it's automatically quarantined for a full diagnostic.
And you have to actually review all this data.
You need a review cadence. Daily for defects, weekly for recurring issues and patterns, monthly for big picture things like mean time between failures. That's how you turn raw data into predictive fleet management.
Okay, let's zoom out again. We've seen the incredible depth of discipline this requires. Why does the FAA care so much? Why demand something that feels more like commercial airliner operations than what we think of as drone work?
Because BVLOS risk is systemic. It's scalable. The FAA is granting you this incredible operational freedom to fly farther and more often in exchange for credible, undeniable evidence that your entire system is predictable at scale.
And that reliability, documented in the logs, is the proof.
It is the objective proof that your engineered safety actually holds up in the real world.
So let's talk about the exchange rate. How does this currency actually translate into benefits for the operator?
Okay, first, reliability buys approval confidence. When you submit a waiver request, the regulator doesn't want your promises. They want to see the data that shows your controls work. They want to see 1,000 flight hours with 0 major incidents. Clean logs are the evidence that makes them comfortable saying yes.
Okay, so it gets you in the door.
It gets you in the door. Second, reliability buys scale. The big fear for regulators is operational entropy. Scaling from 1 drone to 50. Minor defects can become systemic nightmares.
The quiet drift you mentioned.
That quiet drift into unsafe conditions. Rigorous PM, configuration control, and detailed logs are the only antidote. They're what makes scaling acceptable.
And third?
Third, and this is huge, reliability buys resilience. After an incident, and incidents will happen, the questions are always the same. Was this predictable? Did you ignore the warning signs? Did you fix the system? Comprehensive logs let you answer those questions professionally and with evidence, which can be the difference between a quick review and having your entire fleet grounded for months.
So let's nail down these core principles then. That problem of configuration drift seems to be the most abstract, but also the most dangerous.
It's the silent killer. An aircraft that's the same model is not the same aircraft if the firmware or fail-safe parameters are different. Logs and configuration control prevent that drift and ensure every drone in your fleet responds identically in an emergency. That's fundamental to safety at scale.
And this all continues after the drone leaves the factory with that COS framework.
Exactly. The continued operational safety framework makes safety a shared, ongoing obligation. It relies on operators reporting issues they find in their logs back to the manufacturer.
Which closes that safety learning loop for the whole industry.
It does. A lesson learned by one operator in Texas becomes a mandatory fix for an operator in Alaska. It really changes how you think about maintenance. Preventive maintenance converts unknown risk to managed risk.
You're turning surprises into scheduled, controlled events?
Planned downtime instead of mid-mission chaos. And all that data you're collecting allows you to get even smarter. You can move from the manufacturer's generic schedule to a condition-based maintenance model using your own data to predict when a part will fail.
It all comes down to a different way of thinking.
It's the BVLOS way of thinking. Maintenance isn't just turning wrenches, it's system stewardship. You have to adhere to the fix, prove, fly model. Fix the issue, prove the fix works with a test flight, and only then do you sign it back into service. That discipline is what buys you the right to fly beyond visual line of sight.
So we have navigated the specific critical failures that can plague a BVLOS fleet. We've cataloged that required log stack that operators need to prove their competence. And we've really understood the implications of Part 108's shift toward this rigorous, data-driven system safety.
What stands out to me really is that scaling BVLOS forces us to treat every single component, from a tiny crack in a prop to a single software parameter, with the same non-negotiable discipline of manned aviation.
There's a memorable line in the source material about this.
Yeah, you have to remember this. Logs don't just record the past. They are the predictive tools to decide what can fly today and proactively prevent what would certainly fail tomorrow. Reliability really is the receipts that prove your safety is built on evidence, not just hope.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as this industry scales and these rules become formalized?
Well, here's a final thought. The FAA guidance is already encouraging operators to use their own time and service data to build these smarter, condition-based maintenance models. So, if your comprehensive logging allows your fleet to predict the exact flight hour, a specific motor bearing will enter its wear-out zone, does that Part 107 requirement to check for a safe condition become less about a visual inspection and more about a quick, pre-flight data confirmation of a known predicted state?
Wow.
That's the true power of scaling evidence. Go explore how adopting a predictive maintenance mindset changes your own approach to readiness. Because the future of BVLOS is entirely predictive.
That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.